In fact, there are of course a lot of conversations that we often have, and very often we'll be looking at how do we choose the right typeface, how do we choose the right combination of typefaces, and this is probably where you spend most of your dreams, time on as well. But I wanted to ask you something different.
Okay, please.
Who did you want to become when you were growing up?
Surprisingly, a teacher.
A teacher. And
then I was a teacher and I didn't want to be it anymore.
Okay.
But it was just for a year, so it's...
That's fine, that's fine. Because I was just looking up the Google Doc and what you have been writing, who you wanted to become. And that was actually fascinating because we had, I think, a purchase manager there. We also had, what was it? I don't think it was a joke. We don't joke here, right? We have 2 Egyptologists in the house. That you should really build a little group there. We also have somebody who wanted to kind of sell strawberries. That's cool. And we also have Lego sets creator. Well, you have an opportunity to kind of get your start right there. That's great. We also have 3 really bad jokes, which we'll be closing. But okay, well, Toby is excited. That's great. I have one that's typographic.
Okay, please, go ahead.
But might be a little bit challenging.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Oliver, how would you call a fish that doesn't have eyes?
Yeah.
That's typographic, isn't it? Okay, that take what? It's a waves, right? Eyes being like the eye. Okay. Has arrived, that's okay. All right. Now we have the planetarium coming up, right? So you liked it?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. So are you going to planetarium tonight? I heard it's out of this world. Okay, last one, I promise. It's like, I think the camera people are like, when is it going to end finally? How do you organize a space party? You plan it.
That's good, that's good.
That's okay, all right. Okay, thank you for your submissions, by the way, sincerely appreciate it. Okay, moving along there. All right, we wanted typography, accessibility. Oliver, round of applause, please.
It's a human right to access information. On the web, in our apps or user interfaces, most of this information is text-based. And typography is about showing this text at its best. It's about giving your words the right voice, which can be functional or very expressive. It can be traditional or very modern. But it also could be bold or delicate. It's my mission as a typography YouTuber, as a consultant and designer, to show it with the power of type for everyone to see. For everyone to see. Do you hear that? Sarah called when she got the word, and she said, I suppose you've heard about Ellie. Ellie? Oh, yeah. Ellie or accessibility, I know, weird abbreviation. And as I heard at Sarah's talk, accessibility means doing it for blind people. That's what I got today. And blind people, as we also use screen readers. And screen readers are something technical. And technical is not for a designer. So, I've got good news for you. Who here in this room is doing development? Raise your hands. No good news for you. Who in this room is doing design mostly? Yes, great news for you. accessibility, nothing for us designers. You can check this off your list. All the tech nerds will take care of it. We're done. Good. Wonderful. But then I rushed to the window and I looked outside and I could hardly believe my eyes because suddenly I realized there's something in between. There's something in between 100% eyesight and total blindness. Does this mean it's a range? It's a range? Oh my God, it's a range, and on that range are 1.1 billion people globally. That's a lot. But I'm sure most of these people are blind still. Sure. So let's take a look. 510 million with near vision problems, 258 with mild visual impairment, 295 million moderate to severe, and what? Only 43 million out of them, 0.5% are blind? Okay. Then when we go back to this range, there are a lot of impairments like that affect visual acuity, color vision, light sensitivity, and also the field of vision that can be in various states and various combinations. And for example, I am short-sighted, as you can see with my glasses, and I have a mild red-green blindness. So I am already on that scale. But I still can see, and I don't use a screen reader. And if I can still see, and almost all of these 1.1 billion people, who is going to make type accessible to these 1.1 billion people? Who? Except for a visual designer, maybe? Except for me? And you that raised their hands earlier. Oh my God, I was mind blown when I found this out, because this was like, after more than 20 years of doing web design, user interface design, this came to me quite recently. And after I realized, I decided to double down on it. And I researched what I could. But then suddenly all my fears and these false claims popped up. Like, sans serif is the best. Use Comic Sans. The biggest font sizes make it high contrast. Ridiculous spacing. Too many stupid rules. It has to look the same. It has to look boring. And the biggest one, it has to look ugly. I don't know what this means here or where this all will go. I guess there are some reasons, but right now I just don't know. Because for 20 plus years I've been designing next door to Ellie. What the font is Ellie? And what does it mean for typography? This now is my journey trying to find it out. This is typographer versus accessibility. And on this journey where I tried to find some reasons, we will enter two sections, two lands. We will enter readability and legibility land. And the first, which is readability, is about making text pleasant to read. But we will start out with legibility, which is about clear character recognition. So this is our starting point. And along our journey, we will bust a few myths or misconceptions or fears, however you might call them, that I personally had. So it's kind of open therapy for me. So welcome, you're welcome. Let's start it off with the first one. It has to look boring. All the designers in the room, come on, accessibility. So boring, has to look boring. Okay, the thing with accessible typefaces or choosing an accessible typeface, there's the range again. It's not a simple list or a box you can check. Typefaces are complex. It all depends a lot on the use case. And also it depends a lot on the circumstances and the context. But there are two main things that you should keep in mind. And the first one is super emotional because it says, font follows feeling. Yeah, thank you. Great video about it on YouTube. Watch it, subscribe. You can be expressive and you can have fun in a headline, in a logo type, in large display text. Enjoy the rich variety of typefaces, but maybe don't go too far. So this doesn't work well for reading text. It might even be very challenging for more than one word. We're not very used to that. So to anyone, not just to people that have a disability. And the other big principle is font follows function. Also a great term, isn't it? Yeah. So there are situations where you need to be absolutely clear, and I'm sure you all experienced situations like these, where you had to enter a coupon code or a password. So don't let people guess in these critical situations. Be absolutely clear and use something that's very distinct. So first thing to take away is you can be expressive, but know when to be expressive and when not. And so you can pick the right category for your body text when it's about long reading text. And there are a few categories, and you could choose, for example, sans serif, slab serif, or serif typefaces. All of these work fine. But do they really? Let's move on to our second big myth. They take my serifs away. And I see it in your eyes. I truly see it in your eyes. The thing that kept you up at night was the question, should I use sans or should I use serif? This was the one thing that woke you up in the middle of the night and you didn't have an answer for it. If you don't know what serifs are, these are the tiny little feet there attached to a letter. But I'm sure your unconscious mind knew this when you woke up at night and thought about it. So, when we take a look at the clear print guidelines from the Union for, what is it called? From the European Blind Union. Yeah, the URL is much cooler. It's Euroblind. That's nice. Yeah. So I'm sure they know about this because it's the union. The union is right, I guess. So, because I'm an interested graphic designer, let's take a look at that. So, choose standard fonts without serifs. Okay, sans serif, like Arial. Oh, okay. What? Why? I love my serifs. Why do they take them away from me? That's not fair. But let's take a look why this might be relevant, to make it clear, to make it absolutely legible. So for example here, you have which of these three typefaces performs best in legibility. What would you say? Is it the first one? Raise your hands. Okay. Who dares to say the other one? Okay, yeah, okay. So, of course, it's the first one. There, it is easy to differentiate. It could be a bit easier, though, but it's good enough. And what? Arial? In the middle of it? I thought this was a good choice, Euroblind. All right, okay, let's see. And there's another thing that's very crucial when you want to choose a typeface for body text or small sizes that is clear. And this is open shapes. So look at the letters ESCA and these shapes. You can see if they're opened or closed. So which typeface here works best? Is it the first one? Raise your hand. Second one, raise your hand. Third one, raise your hand. Let's take a look at that. It's okay, newsreader works kind of well. There are some serifs there, but it's not so problematic. Fira sans, that's legible. And Arial again, closed shapes. let's see why this is relevant, because if you scale this down here, you see that the openings of the letter shapes are here much more open, and this is relevant for smaller sizes or for blurred vision. Because if you make this smaller, your C could turn into an O, your E could turn into a blurry O or something like that. The S wouldn't be that obvious either, it could be an E maybe. So there are situations that make it harder to read. It will not be illegible in some use cases, as I said. So context plays a big role in it, but if we want to choose an ideal typeface, let's go for ahead with that. And there's a last combination you should check, it's R and N, which is mostly about spacing. So which of these typefaces performs best? Would you say the first one? Second one? Okay, same amount. Third one? One? Yeah, it doesn't really work that well. Times New Newsreader performs quite well. Arial, and Times New Roman, horrible. And why is this relevant? Now let's see how you can apply this all in one set of text. So if you need a few characters to check, yeah, this is a photo moment, take a picture. You can see how various typefaces work here. And why does it matter? Let's blur it all. You can still, is it turn or tam? It's easier to see with PT serif even. PT serif? But it's a serif. And what doesn't work so well here on the left side? What typeface is this? Of course it's Arial and it sucks. So yes, that's a good moment. Now, maybe the question was never sans or serif. Maybe the question is sans and serif. And it more or less depends on these individual features. The serifs are like the shoes of the letters. They are important, thanks for the compliments on my matching shoes here, but they are not everything. They are not everything. And sans serif might fit to your theme better. With modern vibes, character recognition might be a bit clearer, but also it is for less advanced readers preferred. And then serif typefaces have more traditional vibes. They also have a better flow for more trained readers. So, first, pick your theme. Does it fit the atmosphere you want to convey? And then choose your style and then look at the features. So this would be one-way format. All right, now for the next one. This is going to be a bit heavy for you all. So brace yourself for some. Yeah, okay. Before we continue, let me paint the picture a bit. Let's imagine the scene. It is a nice restaurant where I book a table, okay? Nice vegetarian restaurant in Vienna. I want to spend a nice evening with my wife. I book the table. I have to enter my credit card details because there's a 72 euro no-show fee. Okay, expectations are this high. Reviews are good, okay? Now, we enter the restaurant. We sit down. And I'm shocked. Now, what do you think happened here? Why am I shocked? I just realized that today is our wedding anniversary. And that's the reason why we're meeting up. The prices are insane. I would have expected something like that in Oslo, but not here. Yeah? Or, there's something with the typefaces. You choose. Is it 1? 2? 3? How come? How come? Because when I took a look at that menu with that expectations, it's Comic Sans. Come on, it's so easy to make fun of it, but seriously, 72 euros no-show fee, and you can't invest in another typeface. You can buy one typeface for one person not showing up. But let's go back to the topic, because maybe they just were super inclusive. And I just didn't get it because I'm an ignorant designer asshole, yeah? So I just didn't get it. They're super inclusive because every talk that I use, in every talk that I point to Comic Sans, somebody comes up to me after and says, did you know that Comic Sans is actually a great typeface for dyslexic people. Okay, so I should use Comic Sans, or even worse then, I should use Open Dyslexic. Which translate to my sensitive designer heart into I have to make my design ugly. Really? Is that what accessibility is about? Is it? Okay, let's talk a moment about dyslexia. Dyslexia is not a physical impairment, it's a cognitive thing, as we also heard in Sarah's talk, and it's a learning difficulty that affects the fluent reading and spelling of words. So, I'm also slightly dyslexic, it's a range again, very slightly, but enough to have a lot of typos in my content. Please tell me if there are any slides. There will be, I guess. But the thing is that people say this is so much better, and I don't hate you. I don't hate you. So I don't, to be fair, okay? Super easy, designer joke, Comic Sans, ha ha ha. I don't hate Comic Sans, it just depends. Is it appropriate to use? It's the best typeface for the kindergarten party of my girl, of my youngest. Wonderful typeface. Times New Roman? Seriously? Can't use Times New Roman for a kindergarten summer party. Doesn't work. Comic Sans, best. Is it the best for this fancy restaurant though? I would argue no. Now, there's a thing with dyslexia that often gets mentioned, that mirrored letter shapes will create trouble, so will make it harder to read to some people. So, in that sense, we have here 3 different typefaces, and these letter shapes are, what would you say, how does the first typeface perform? It's not that good, okay. And the others, our good friend in the middle, quite well, so it's very differentiated. Oh, what? Arial again? Arial. I thought you were better. No, it's not. But then again, Comic Sans, yeah, it's playful and it's more differentiated. But look at Open Dyslexic. Just take a look at that. This is a typeface that looks as if somebody was blindfolded, put a gun against their head, and then they needed to carve a letter shape into a potato, then make a stamp on paper, then trace it and turn it into a font. So this cannot be the case. So, and I guess there are some other more decent typefaces that could work. So let's take a look here. On the left side, we have Atkinson Hyperlegible, which is much more legible. It's a bit mirrored, but it would work mostly fine. Serif typeface again, because serif typefaces have differentiated mirrored letter shapes. Serif again, using. And on the right side, we have another playful typeface, Chantal Sans. But most of these studies claim that these fonts perform so much better for dyslexia. They are preferred more for people that have dyslexia, but they are still the least preferred typefaces even among people that have dyslexia. So they perform poor even for people with dyslexic traits. Now, you can find out more about this in my conversation with Eleni Beverato on my YouTube channel, where we dive into this topic and also about these studies and surveys and so on and so forth. So I encourage you to check this out. This typeface, to be fair again, I have to be nice again. After I was super mean, I'm nice again now. This might help some people. If it helps you and you're dyslexic, or if you just enjoy it, or if you want this broken, grungy look that nobody cares, oh good, who am I? Who am I to say it can't help you individually? I cannot. But on a rule of thumb, as a general idea, this just looks broken to most people. And if you want to go for this friendly, playful vibe, there are alternatives to our good old friend Comic Sans that are much more sophisticated, like this playful and friendly typeface, which is Chantal Sans. Also on the Font Friday newsletter, subscribe. Here at the end of this talk there will be a link. So now, almost half time of our journey. I know you're already sad, but we're starting to leave legibility land, and we're going to enter readability land, which is about making text easy and pleasant to read. So, and because we need to get a bit more power here, and I know we all need this dopamine hit, quick wins, now quick wins. Let's give us a few quick wins. Toby, give me some sounds for that, yeah? Because we need some quick wins now, okay? The best typeface will not work. The most legible, if you set it horribly. So, great typeface, but poor, very poor execution, very pure typesetting. Okay, so let's go. Don't justify text. Bam! Left aligned. Underlined sparingly. Bam! No underline. Avoid all caps. Bam! Mixed case. Italicize sparingly. Bam! We got it! Now you feel satisfied. So many wins in such a short period of time. It's a great thing because it prepares you for a very, very important topic, our next big myth. Number 4. Make it high contrast. It's always about high contrast. You know now, what do you know about me? Actually nothing, because Vitaly didn't introduce me. Anyway, but I'm a super rich and famous typography YouTuber. You know that there are so many typography YouTubers out there, and I'm the best, obviously. And I'm getting so much ad revenue right now. I'm not sure why I'm even here, yeah? It's just getting into my account, flowing there. And that's the reason why I need to invest it to the moon, my friends. Yeah, crypto, everything. Now, I need a broker that fits my aesthetic wishes. So let's find something fancy like this cool Trade Republic, yes! Okay, but when I wanted to get their app and I looked at that website, what was going on here? What is this? 1.64 to 1 color contrast? What? It needs to be at least 3 to 1. Who can even read this anywhere for large text? And now you already know what these numbers stand for. And we're after the middle of this talk. And I think it's time, brace yourself for a really good joke, it's time to address the elephant in the room. WCAG, or as I heard today, what was it? WCAG? Everybody, WCAG. Well, as we already heard, first you fight them, then you fall asleep over them, and then you kind of learn to love them because you get them, but then you don't, but then you get. Yeah. So, as we already heard, it's not just relevant because it's a nice document, it's the law. And it's the law, lawyer up, everyone. And this is when we appreciate WCAG even more. It is mandatory because of the European Accessibility Act to make it accessible, design it accessible. And quick overview, if you haven't spent your nights with WCAG before, I have. There are certain principles, guidelines, and then success criteria. And one principle that's very relevant to us visual designers is perceivable. Information and user interface components must be presentable to users in ways they can perceive. That sounds like logical, I guess. But it's not. And there are some success criteria you test against then. And if these apply, then you know what to do. And we have the use of color, which means do not rely on color only, and then we have contrast, a minimum value. And there are also some great cheat sheets here. What we have, 4.5 to 1 for normal text, 3 to 1 for large text, and 3 to 1 for bold text and also user interface components and stuff. So now you know that. Now you know that. Okay, I had to build my own banking app, of course, because designer and wasn't satisfied with Trade Republic, but still stupid and ignorant and make a few mistakes. So what did I mess up here? Just shout it out. Where's color contrast not so ideal? Buttons, and what did I hear? Sorry? Dates, okay, let's check it out here. Buttons, 3, 5, 9. Can't we round this to 4.5? I asked this question, it doesn't count. It has to be 4.5 at least. So let's change the dates here, and you see this is a tiny difference. You wouldn't even see it. But for some people, it means seeing it in somehow or not seeing it at all. So checking things with a color contrast checker is essential. You start to develop a sort of spider sense, what's bad contrast after a certain point, but you still need to check things. Okay, now about our buttons, this cannot work, okay? So we have here 1.77 to 1, this is not readable, and here just increasing this, way better, also highlighting a primary and a secondary action. That's good UX, my friends. So we need to care about minimum contrasts, and we always should use a tool to check it. One we already heard from Sarah, which was Stark. I prefer this in Figma as well. I really like that one. And there's also a nice tool called Fontanello in your browser, which tells you the typeface. I know you're always curious, which typeface is this? And like I am, and you can then right-click here, and you also see if the contrast ratio is working out. And then you can point fingers and be mean to the website owners. So, now we got our contrast right, but even right contrast doesn't really work if the text is too small. Who can read this? Nobody, because it's small. Let's say nobody. Which brings us to the next myth and to a break, a water break. So guys, stay hydrated. Get a water now. Wonderful swallowing experience here. ASLR for everyone. Okay, so I have to use big font sizes. And that's the next thing. Sensitive designer. We love to make things illegibly small and light. Otherwise, nobody would know that we're designers, because no normal person would do that. But that's the thing. What's the minimum font size? What's an accessible minimum font size? Okay. Is this really accessible? Is this, what do you think? Is this accessible or not? It's accessible, yes. It's not accessible. But a lot of you are not sure. Yeah, and who can help us here? Werkek, come on, help me out, help me out. But there's only two things where font sizes are mentioned, and that's in the contrast minimum for at least 14 points, not pixels, points in bold. It could be 3:1 or larger than 24 pixels. And for resize of text, and it doesn't say any minimum size. If you can scale it up by 200%, you're good. You could use 1 pixel font size. But that doesn't help us. It only brings us in this nice area of, I love this term, malicious compliance. It's complying, but it doesn't make any sense. So in that way, if we can scale it up, all good. We don't lose content functionality, all good. But now let's talk a bit about type sizes again, because size matters. And it also is very different. It is very different. It depends a lot on the typeface used. These two typefaces actually have the same type size, but the right one seems a bit smaller. And the reason for this is the exciting X-height. It's so exciting. So if you have a typeface with a large X-height, which means relatively tall lowercase letters in relation to the uppercase letters, it seems larger and performs better in smaller sizes. So Josephine Sands, that's a display typeface. Next time you see it in body text, you will suffer. Now you know why. So in small sizes, larger X height helps. So typefaces have different sizes, or they're perceived in different ways. On the other hand, it depends a lot on the viewport and on the device you're looking at. For example, here on this big screen, 12 pixels, not so good. Maybe on your phone, also not so good. But it depends a lot what's the distance to the device. So you could make it on a large screen, you should blow up your font size. You should make it, of course, you make it flexible and fluid. In mobile devices, maybe even make it a bit smaller. I always hate it on my big monitor, desktop monitor, I always zoom in the text because it's not so close to my body like my laptop would be. So it is depending, and we just assume the larger the viewport, the larger the text should be. But what is a good base size now? So, and this is a boring answer, but just go for the defaults. Just use 16 pixels, use 1 RAM, and even that, you can make this larger. Don't be afraid of 24 pixels in body text. Don't be afraid. So, and do not go below 12 pixels. So this, maybe for UI text, you can be smaller for UI text, but not for large. Okay, so there is no minimum font size, but 1 RAM, 1 pixel. I already said that. I'm not sure why this slide is in there, but bringing us to our final myth. I have to use ridiculous spacing. Okay, and now you're already super educated typographers. You know so much now. Now, bear with me, we go into the nitty-gritty details of spacing. Space, the final frontier. Now, we have a typeface. In larger sizes, it looks good. Medium sizes and small sizes, it starts to look a bit cramped. It becomes harder to read. It's not so pleasant to read. So, what do we have here? Oh, Arial again. Now, Arial, nice in large sizes, nicely spaced. But for body text and for UI text, claustrophobic. So you need to increase the space a little. So see the difference? It's a tiny difference, but it's the difference that makes it readable and not readable. Now, what works for Arial is different for Atkins and Hyperlegible. In larger sizes, it almost seems to fall apart slightly. In smaller sizes, it's a bit too dense. For medium sizes, fine. So you could even decrease letter spacing for large sizes and increase them for smaller sizes. So these are some approaches. It always depends on the typeface and the use case. So we're on the individual character level. Now, let's move on and continue to line length. Line length, is anybody attracted to read this? To reading this? No, no. We're all put off, disgusting. And this is because of line length. You need to add a max width to your paragraphs. So 95 characters is just too much. Nobody can take this. Very long line, very unpleasant. So make this a bit shorter. Make this 71 characters. Between 60 and 80 characters, that's the ideal line length. No, there's no scientific evidence. It's just that we are used to it. But just do it, yeah? Okay? But still, is this attractive? Still feel, yes, I saw your gesture, yeah. So we need some leading here. And 0.8 times, so 80% of the type size. That's not a good line height. That's too tight. So let's add some space. Oh. But this, it kind of starts to lose structural integrity here. And this is always bad in Star Trek. So I guess it's bad for text as well. Now, let's find something in between. Sweet, sweet. So that's nice, that's good. But when we take a look now at a narrow viewport on our phones, what looked quite refined in our wide viewport suddenly looks very loose again in shorter lines. So in this use case, you could make it a bit tighter even. So I would make this a bit tighter. Nice, nice. Thank you for your help. This worked out fine. It was just a pleasure to watch this unfold and yeah, everything. So, but what? Oh, we have a success criteria here. Font for 12, line height at least 1.5 times, letter spacing at least 0.12 times, and word spacing 0.16 times. But we crafted it so peculiarly. We put our heart and soul into that. How would this look if I applied it? Let's just see. This is how we said it. Oh my God! This is how it looks now. The success criterion told me this is how accessibility looks like after all the work we've done. This is like a Swiss cheese. It loses everything to me. Why, Ellie? Why? I'm out of here. It's ridiculous. No. No. It's not good. John, it's not good. It's okay, you say.
Hey, Oliver.
Who are what? Who are you?
It's me, Ali.
And you're using open dyslexic?
Actually not. I was just fonting with you. Lol.
You're using open dyslexic? This is just cruel. And first the stupid rule, the stupid success criterion.
Don't be mad. Is this better?
Yes, it's a bit better. Thank you. I still don't get why you did that to me. We were kind of trying. We got along quite well, didn't we? And now suddenly everything just destroyed. Why? Why do you hate good typography, Ali?
I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Why don't you read on?
Read on what? Oh, okay. So content is not required to use these text spacing values. The requirement is to ensure that when a user overwrites the author's text in content, the functionality is not lost. What? So this means I actually don't have to set my text exactly that way?
You're right.
Oh, I see. After a certain point, you need to be able to adjust things. And when you adjust things, Ellie is just making sure that people get the settings they need. I got you, Ellie.
And I got you too.
Thank you. So no hard feelings anymore. Because the thing is, after a certain point, there are individual needs that we as designers cannot address. And they are all different because one size never fits all. And maybe this was never about making it for all people. Accessibility is more about making it for more people, to make it more inclusive, to make it more robust. So now that you know more now, what will your next design project look like? How will it be? What will it look like? Will your text be functional, really functional? Or will it be expressive, but without making everyone's eyes bleed? Then you can be traditional, but give it the right size. Or modern, and give it the spacing it needs. You can be bold, but in the right contrast, and modern and delicate with the right weight. So having fonts, contrast, size, and spacing as your magic ingredients for your next design project. Because you know now what this means here and where this all will go. You understand the meaning, and your next design will show from today on and forever. Your text will be beautifully Ali, of course. Thanks a lot. And now make something beautiful.
Wow. So we have in the questions everything now set in Comic Sans.
That's very thoughtful.
For sure, for sure. But there is also a couple of questions that might spice up a conversation even more.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, give it to me.
Our software uses Roboto as your iPhone. Soulless, I know.
Yes.
It's a very sigh, I can almost hear the sigh emoji. Introduced along with material design. How can I convince stakeholder to go another way?
Okay, well, to be fair, Roboto is not the worst choice. So it is something, it is functional in a way, and there's also the thing, if you're often exposed to a typeface, you read it easier. It's always very different. Like thinking of black letter text, like the text you see on the ceilings and the windows. We were much more exposed to these kind of letter shapes back then. Today it's harder for us to read. And the same goes for Roboto. When you have this as a system, as a default font, it is easier to read for many people. Now, back to the question. The thing is that you can also introduce something interesting when using Roboto in more unusual ways, maybe expanding on the weights, maybe just thinking of sizes and spacing and adjusting these. So, or using stylistic alternates that are included in the typeface so that it doesn't look that soulless, that it gets a bit more character. Another idea could be to add another typeface for display text, for headlines, because Roboto is like a bit of toast, and you use this reference by Eric Spiekermann for Helvetica, but Roboto is a bit similar. And it's like toast, and you can put anything on there, and maybe spice it up a little by using an additional typeface. And it always depends on what the problem is with the current typeface. Is it soulless? Yes. Why do we want to, or why doesn't it fit? It's more about convincing why it doesn't fit, I guess. I hope this answers the question.
Of course, of course. I think also we have a lot of conversations around, let's say, typefaces that are designed specifically for accessibility. Like you also showed hyperlegible.
Yes.
And the question would be, can we use it as a reliable option at all times and say, okay, this is, if we want to go that path, we just use hyperlegible. But then the question is, where does branding then live? If, let's say, you have a bank and you have some experience with bank accounts, switching them and all, how would you say it would go with branding? Because can hyperlegible, for example, if it was everywhere, like, let's say, Open Sans is, can it still be working just fine, or is it, I don't know?
Yeah, using the same typeface or a very popular typeface, this has advantages and disadvantages. Like in that sense, when you, Atkinson Hyperlegible is still not that widespread. So compared to, for example, Arial still, but it's not a default font on mobile devices or Android mobile devices. But on the other hand, when you use Atkinson Hyperlegible and combine it again with something interesting for headlines, you saw it takes a lot of space for headlines, and you don't want that. You want headlines to be a bit more compact, especially on mobile, so you can have a bit larger type sizes. So in that case, I would think of combining it with something else again, or looking at the typeface you're currently using and maybe choosing another setting. And it's not like if uppercase I, lowercase l, and the number 1 are not always differentiable. It's not like people say, I don't get that this word is illustration. I will not read on. So it's just, for a password, it's critical. For body text, it might work in most cases. And if it's a very text-heavy site, maybe a serif typeface would be even better, because it's more distinct when it comes to letter shapes.
Sasha is wondering, are there good resources that have lists of good fonts or fonts combination for people that can't judge them themselves and don't have an entertaining typographer in their team? I'm very disappointed now in Arial.
Me too, yeah. Yes. pimpmytype.com. There
Excellent.
are a lot. Font Friday newsletter, as you saw, it's I send out a font recommendation weekly, and I tell you if it works for large text, for body text, or for UI text, or in which case it's an edge case, what's critical about the typeface. So there's another one coming up what Friday?
All right. Lucy is wondering, system fonts.
Yes.
Yeah, so would you recommend choosing a specialized type font, or are the system's fonts doing okay job as well?
Yeah, when it comes to this survey, there was this big survey by the readability group, which is also an issue with the conversation with Eleni Beverato that I showed, the link to the YouTube video. They asked 2,000 plus people which text they preferred. They also asked if they're short-sighted, if they're dyslexic, and a lot of things went into the interpretation, or more or less they got some directions. And the typefaces like Sago UI, which is the default from Microsoft. Then you have Roboto, of course, for Android, and then you have San Francisco by Apple. And all these typefaces perform quite well. So you can go for them. The problem here would be consistency in a way. When you think of San Francisco, it's not available on Android devices, and you cannot, because it's not a web font. It's just a system font. You cannot get it there. Arial, the same. It's not. Why should you use Arial? That was a trick question. But even Comic Sans, it's not on Android. It's not available. You would need to purchase a web font license from Microsoft to use Comic Sans as a web font. It's, yeah. I think about making a YouTube video on that, but I paid for Comic Sans. Clickbaity thing. Yeah, so you can then combine this again. So I would encourage people to browse, maybe, if you want consistency, use Roboto, maybe with interesting settings, but you can host it as a web font, or check out Font Friday and find something interesting that you can then use as a web font and host to several
I'm also
clients.
thinking about like when you implement fonts, right? And you see, let's say you want to use just general stacks, like you want San Francisco, you want Sequoia UI, and so on. But they all will probably require different line height, different
spacing. It's slightly different, but it's not super different. It's still okay, and since we aim to build for flexibility on the web overall, there was an update with Inter. Everybody likes Inter, I guess, because yay, Inter, so many options. But there was an update to version 4, great video on a great YouTube channel about this. And well, but the thing is, everything updated now. If you're using Google Fonts to host, which you shouldn't, of course, you know this, to host the fonts, then suddenly things start to shift. It shouldn't break your design, but it gets a very different vibe, because in larger sizes it looks better now, but for smaller sizes the default setting for Inter is now different. So you might need to revisit it and self-host it.
Okay. Ready?
Yes?
I never understand why people hate Comic Sans so much. Can you just explain to me what's the problem there?
Inappropriate use. And it's so widespread. That's the basic gist of it. When we think the typeface itself is, as I said, friendly when you want to use it for something playful, nice, so on. The problem is it doesn't have kerning, which means when you type an uppercase T and a lowercase a, the letters are very far apart because it wasn't applied back then, 1992 or something. It wasn't a thing back then, but Microsoft didn't change that. So it's not a great typeface, technically speaking. It was a very characteristic choice, and I think this is also why people do not like it so much.
And then maybe just two more, or maybe just one more. What is the most unusual and the most boring typefaces you've ever seen in your life? Wow.
The most boring typeface.
Astaria.
It's always hard to hate, even though I spread so much hate today. Again, I think a lot of times it's the application, not thinking about how it's perceived, how it looks. It has a strong emotional impact. Like we saw on the slides on the talk before, this very handwritten, sketchy typeface, it had so much personality. And if you combine this with something more neutral, it's a great match. It's an interesting combination. And I think it always depends here on the use case. And I think you can even make something great with the most boring typeface. So
Yeah. Well, we will wrap up with one joke that was submitted by Sophie on typography, which I think is really nice. Why did Oliver get into typography? He wanted to have more impact.
I think this would be a great meme using impact, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
with this in mind, I think that Jan, you wanted to bring something in for. It's
Yeah.
coming? Because I think you wanted to do something.
Yes, exactly. So, Gerein and we came up with a nice challenge for you guys. I think I stand up.
Sure,
because,
sure.
Yeah, it's an important thing. Yeah, they will hand out some paper, and the challenge is the following. I'm sure you paid so much attention. This is a test now, yeah? No, but you paid a lot of attention, and the challenge is, can you design the most inaccessible character? Think of a character. Is it an 8 or is it a B? Is it an I, L1? Is it a 0 and O? Just maybe you can mix this. Try to draw a very inaccessible character. You do not need to hand this in today. I think by the end of the day at the party or tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning, yeah. So that's your home assignment now. Don't party. Draw a typeface or character.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll leave
the winner will get a free online ticket of an event of their choice. So, and I will charge it.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks, Otto, for sharing all your insights with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.